Welcome to Get Over It, the consciousness transforming podcast for exceptional 21st century living. Folks, I am so excited. We're going to be actually speaking to an animal communicator today. Joan Ranquet is going to talk about her latest book, and that's Emotional Freedom Technique for Animals and Their Humans, Creating a Harmonious Relationship Through Tapping. Now, most of you probably know about EFT for humans. I use it all the time. Hadn't thought about using it on my fur babies. So she's going to talk to us about this process and how it works for our animal friends. And if you're an animal lover, which most of you who listen in are, it's going to be really important that you pay attention to this show. Now, the information shared on Get Over It uses intuitive and pragmatic insight to help you shift your consciousness to break through the blocks and release energy that is no longer needed. Yes, we're going to help you let go of the BS that's been holding you back. But you guys know I always ask, are you truly ready to? And by the way, folks, BS is belief system. Bit about me for my new listeners, intuitive since birth. I'm a third generation intuitive with over 3 decades of experience supporting people to break through the blocks along their path. I'm a strategist for personal and professional transformation, revealing cutting-edge information that enables you to prosper and thrive. I spent 25 successful years in corporate America as an executive sales professional, and I'm the founder of Healing Visions Ministries and the Northern California Children's Education Network, a 501c3 nonprofit. I provide consultations and healings in all areas of life that heal the mind, body, spirit connection, allowing you to live your very best life. My clients tell me that I keep it real while providing them with accurate information to assist them along their journey as a spirit living a human existence. But they also say, if you really don't want to know, don't ask Monique. My background includes a doctorate in metaphysics, Reiki master teacher, ordained minister, and clinical hypnotherapist. So whether you are stressed, depressed, or possessed, I can help. To find out more about me and the services I offer, go to my website, and that's MoniqueChapman.com. And I invite you to follow me on Facebook and LinkedIn. No longer on Twitter, so don't look for me there. Okay. Now, my guest today, animal communicator Joan Ranquet, is an energy healer, TEDx speaker, author, and founder of Communication with All Life University, a certification program for animal communication and energy healing. She lives with her 3 horses, 3 dogs, and 4 cats in Santa Clarita, California. And you can check her out on her website, and that's joanranquet.com, JoanRanquet.com. Welcome, Joan.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I love what you do. So it's really fun to connect.
We got a synergy going on, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, am I pronouncing your last name correctly? I didn't ask before we were recording.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so your book, EFT Technique for Animals. First of all, for those who don't know, explain what EFT is and then the animal component, please.
Okay. So EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, tapping, is a technique, a modality, if you will, where you tap with your fingers on acupressure points that are specifically in a sequence, and these specific points are very calming points. And if you know anything about acupressure, the acupressure points that are chosen, like I said, are calming. But acupressure points are connected to meridians, and those meridians are connected to organs, and those organs are connected to, in traditional Chinese medicine, I believe that the organ systems are connected to emotions. So the specific points that are chosen for EFT when we do tapping on ourselves are on the face, and a little bit on the chest and a little bit on the body, but primarily on the face, and they are all calming, feel good, relaxing points. So the theory is if you're triggered by something, upset by something, that you might, you have PTSD over something, if you think about that experience and it keeps re-triggering you, if you were to do EFT around that experience and story and those emotions, you would be telling a challenging story while tapping on feel-good points. And what ends up happening is it brings the nervous system down. So eventually you can still remember the story, but you're not triggered by it. That was a very long version. And
but very clear.
yeah. So the same thing is true with the animals. And the great thing about the animals is, like, for example, I mean, I've been an animal communicator, you've been an intuitive consultant forever. So, we see people that resist, and it's not that animals don't resist, but we can see people, where they come to us and they might be skeptical about coming to us, but, and eventually that goes away. But animals don't doubt whether energy works or not, right? They just are like, right. They're all in.
Yes, they do accept it. So that's absolutely wonderful. Now, you previously worked, and probably still do, I don't know, with humans with EFT. How did you make the transition? What sparked this change?
Well, I had always been an animal communicator. In my way that when I first got trained and certified, I worked with humans that had experiences that were preventing them from being closer or moving forward with their animals. So if somebody had a dog where, let's say, they walked outside with their cute little boxer and the boxer got attacked one day, and they carried a lot of fear in their nervous system, the human did, because of what happened. And then every time the dog went out after that, the dog would then be the attacker. I worked on the person so that they weren't, triggering from the other side of the leash. Or let's say someone who had fallen off their horse and was afraid to get back on. I would I would tap with the human so that they would drop the fear and be able to get back on their horse. And then one day I had a client call me, and he was a horse trainer. And he said, this horse, who had also been a client of mine, this very large horse. I was living in Florida at the time. He was at a horse show, and he was in the warm-up ring, so working out, getting ready for his, to jump. And there were a lot of ponies in the arena, and he was going after the ponies, like open mouth, dinosaur-looking teeth, going after ponies with girls. And so I said to the trainer, I can talk to him on the phone. I do. As an animal communicator, we probably work on the phone all the time. So he said, no, you need to come out and help us. This is really, really bad. And this was in about 2004. And so I'd done a lot of work with humans up until that point with the EFT. And so I thought, all right. I kind of dropped everything and went out there, and it really was frightening. When I saw the horse going after the ponies, I'd never seen anything like it. So I said, let's go down in this barn aisle and see if we can find out why he's doing this. So I communicated with him, and the sense I got was that this horse had been weaned from his mother too young and was left in a field with ponies for a while. And the owner actually confirmed that something like that had happened. And the ponies really picked on him. And the bigger he got, he didn't realize that he was, large and in charge and way bigger than these ponies, right? So the ponies were still a threat to him. So what I did, I just thought, what the heck? What do I have to lose? What if I tried this on him? And so I knew I had studied acupressure in the 90s, and I knew all the points. So I thought, I'm going to use the same points that we use for humans. And I just tapped on him about how, I hate ponies. This is so scary. They were mean to me. And then we made a transition into, I don't want to be this guy. I just want to do this horse show. I want to have fun with my people. And by the end of it, he was really relaxed. He went out there and he was not as, he wasn't as threatened by the ponies. He would look at them. He kind of, with the whites of his eye, he would kind of be like, you stay over there. But eventually he moved into a barn where he lived across the aisle from a pony. And even later on in life, he was retired next to a pony and they were seen grooming each other. So, yeah, one tapping had the happiest ending of all.
That is amazing how that the tapping shifted that animal.
Yeah.
And this can happen with any animal that we work with if the animal's having any sort of issues. But how do you know? I mean, in that instance, you kind of knew, okay? But in other instances, like say you have a dog and the dog is just yawning all the time. I mean, sometimes you can take that as a sign of yawning as being like relaxed and chill, but other times there might be something wrong. So how do you know the difference? How do you know when to take action?
So, I mean, I think in the case of a dog yawning, I would look around at all of the other activity and see, is the dog normal in every other way? And then I might think, is there something going on in the jaw? But if I were, obviously I'm an animal communicator, and that's my first day job in this whole thing. So I can always ask, but in the book, I have a lot of investigative kind of little questions you can ask yourself, or even close your eyes and ask yourself on behalf of your animal. And, maybe there's something else going on in the body. Maybe there's something that the, animal is afraid of and is just kind of putting themselves in the corner and yawning to kind of ignore the rest of the world. So I think when you start asking yourself those questions on behalf of the animal, you get to the main emotions, and that's when you can, then I have the tapping charts. Everything's in there for a beginner to try with their own animal.
Yeah. Well, I have to share with you that we just passed the 4th of July a few days ago. And my dog, Miss Sadie, she just freaks out. And, I always go to the vet and get tranquilizers. And I hate giving them to her because, I mean, you can tell she's drunk, and she's wobbly and shaky and everything. So I actually pulled out this book and did the EFT with her for fear and noise. And she went from being startled at 100 down to about 35. And to me, that was a big win.
That's huge. That is huge.
And I didn't have to give her the tranquilizers and watch her suffer and whatever. So folks, if you have animals, any type of animals, and they're bothered by noise, I found the EFT to work. And I just read her book and followed, what she said in the book. So this can have a very, very positive effect. Now, in your book, you talk about the 7 blue ribbon emotions. And then you've already said emotions are kind of connected to the organs. So what are the 7 blue ribbon emotions, and how do we work with them or kind of just let them go?
Well, like humans, we share a lot of these emotions. If you look at like rage, panic, those are kind of some of the bigger ones. Then there's, lust, care, play. Now, of course,
panic.
What's
panic?
Panic, yeah.
And seeking.
And seeking, I mean, seeking is, I think, it's so funny. When I started studying this, I actually studied this for my second book, Energy Healing for Animals, years and years ago. And when I thought about seeking, it's like, oh my God, I am a seeker. I've been a seeker of spiritual things. I'm a seeker of adventure. And so I really identify with that now with my animals. When I'm out on a walk and I'm in a hurry, I kind of go, wait, they've got to just be seekers for a minute, let them smell. So seeking is one of my favorite things, because it's like when you were asking about if that dog was in the corner yawning and yawning and yawning, like, is that dog normally a seeker? That's kind of where I would go with that. But yeah, so those are all things that we absolutely share with the animals. And of course, there's more nuanced feelings, and I go into that in my second book. But the reason I break it down so simply in this way is that when you're working with an animal and you want to help them release, like, for example, your dog, Miss Sadie, I would guess that if you did this a few more times, you're going to get that 35 down to 0. And because, we were lucky with Shakespeare the horse that we got it down to, we didn't quite get it down to 0, but it was enough to work with that eventually he let it go. And sometimes there's a miraculous response, and sometimes there's that is good enough for me response. And eventually they start to let it go. And so the things like, I put the seeking and the play in there, because those are things that when you're trying to help them move past something, it's something to look forward to, right? Like, we can go out and smell something yummy, or we can, here's a ball. So playing with those main emotions, keep it really simple, because what we tend to do as humans is complicate it, right? We'll say, oh, this dog was adopted, and then he went to a different home, and then he went to 45 more things. And it's like, at the bottom line, he's just grieving that last home. And when he starts to release the grief, he'll be seeking again, but we will go into story all day long.
Okay. Now, another point you covered in your book was that there are 2 nervous systems in our homes. And when I first saw the subtitle, I'm like, what could that possibly be? And then before reading the section, I tied it into the human nervous system running around, and then the animal nervous system. So is that what you wanted? I'm pretending I didn't read that in the book, so the audience will.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And why I love to going back to the big story, if you will, is that we tell about our animals. A lot of times we're enmeshed with our animals, and we won't recognize, like, let's say you're anxious about something and your dog happens to be someone, like, let's say it's 4th of July and your dog has anxiety around the big booms. You want to make sure that you're recognizing their specific emotions about their thing, and not making it about us, which is what we love to do also. We're very anthropocentric, so we love to say, oh, my dog's mirroring me. And while you and your dog may share a certain emotion or a certain experience, your dog also has its own history that's feeding why they might be acting out with anxious behaviors. And you want to really, specifically address that.
So do you feel, and this is kind of an off the wall question, but do you feel that dogs reincarnate as dogs?
I think that we all reincarnate all over the map. I think I've been a horse a few times, a dog a few times. God knows I've been a dolphin. So I think that we tend to come back into our soul family, and we tend to keep connecting, but when I got this one dog who's now 12, it was just a couple years after my dad had died. And while I don't think she's necessarily my dad, I think my dad had a hand in me getting her. And there was a look in her eyes that whenever I had cousins or my aunt come over, I would have Delilah look at me a certain way, and then I'd show the picture of my dad and I'd say, look, he's back. And my cousins would all see it and be like, oh my God, that's scary.
Yeah. Okay, I want to cover another subject that is hot in the news these days, and it's service animals and emotional support animals. First of all, do you make a distinction between the two? And if so, what? And then how do we help those animals should they become blocked, especially if they become blocked in a way that they're supposed to help us?
That's such a great question. So, first of all, I do make a distinction because service animals generally have been trained to do something like help somebody who might be in a wheelchair to be able to, turn on and off the lights, maybe get stuff. Other service animals are alerted to, an insulin response for a diabetic. I have a lot of guide dog clients. So those are what I would consider service animals, and then emotional support animals. And then there are service animals that work with extreme cases of PTSD, like for veterans. Then there are, emotional support dogs, which a lot of people can go get their animal trained as an emotional support dog. And I hope they're not just buying the vest on the interwebs and are actually going through with it, because it is really important that those dogs are kind of ambassadors, if you will, when they're like if they're on an airplane and there's another dog getting on. I've been on an airplane where two emotional support dogs were growling at each other, and it was rather unpleasant. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So, I think people have to really take the emotional support job seriously, right? Because if you want to claim that, then really go through all the processes. But so the thing I think about with animals is dogs in particular, they sleep many, 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 many hours a day. And their ancestors, the wolves, are probably somewhere tucked into their little den right now. They're not out roaming around. They'll get out a little later, but they sleep a lot. So I feel like EFT could really help, because we don't want our animals to be, and I'm saying this in air quotes, on all the time. Like if you have an emotional support dog or a service dog, I hope that, your animal has a fair amount of time off. And if, whether it does or not, it still has an enormous amount of responsibility. And that becomes kind of what I refer to a lot in the book, pressure. And pressure can be good. It's sometimes how we make a change. It's how we get stuff done. But it also can break down the system or create a block, as you said. And so, yeah, EFT could be very powerful for an animal that has to be on more often than not. I've done a lot of EFT with another form of service animals are the horses at therapeutic riding centers that, they take on a lot, because all of them, anybody that fits in that category, they want to do the right thing. That's part of their essence. It's part of who they are. So, if we're not setting them up perfectly, or they feel like they can't help someone, it wears on them.
And then they feel disjointed and they're just not performing well, I guess.
Yeah. It's like any of us that kind of don't feel like we're in purpose.
Okay. Let's talk about your website for a moment. Folks, you can go to Joan Ranquet, that's JoanRanquet.com. Joan, what are we going to find there? What programs are you offering? Give us a deep dive into your website and what you're offering.
So I always say I'm a school. I've become a school. I have everything from books, digital classes, all the way to certification programs in animal communication and energy healing. And I take people on wildlife trips. And yeah, so those are the kind of the three big categories for me is books, trips, and classes. And I have everything from like an EFT boot camp, virtual boot camp at the end of July to certification in emotional freedom technique, and teach a lot. I've always got animal communication going on, and in those certification programs, we deal with death and dying, and we work with animals in sanctuaries. It's huge. I could take all day explaining it. But one of the more exciting things that we're doing in the school is we're using this technique to work with shelters and rescues. So we're creating a program for shelters that have unadoptable animals, and I'm starting the pilot program. First week of August, I'm flying to Michigan to Traverse City Humane Society and working with the staff there and training them to do this work, to be able to help the staff, the volunteers, and the animals all heal so that the animals can go out and get forever homes.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. My son has a dog, and he's quite a dog. He's aggressive. When he's at my house, I feed him. He will bite me when he's not pleased, i.e., he didn't get what he wanted in his dish. Can EFT help an animal like that?
Absolutely.
How, girl? How?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to think of how we could do this. I mean,
no, you don't have to him you don't have to do the EFT on the animal. I'm just asking, in like an overview, how can we help an animal who is so afraid until it lashes out all the time?
So there's several ways I would do it. Number one, I would work with an animal communicator and find out what is underlying all of it. Then I would do the EFT, and then I would do the EFT with your son. And I would also then bring on a trainer. And so, a lot of times when one of the reasons I broke down behaviors as specifically as I did in the book is, if the dog is already afraid and your son is not a good leader, so to speak, and I'm talking about an emotional leader, like if the dog is trying to help your son in a million ways and your son is like, yeah, I've got this, but he doesn't really engage in that way of keeping the dog safe, then the dog is just going to continue to react. We often think that a dog is protecting their people, but the truth is they're protecting themselves, because there are a lot of mixed messages, and they have no other way of kind of breaking through and saying, I don't understand.
Interesting. I had never really thought about it that way, because as you said, we think about animals and their protection to us. In fact, many people will pick an animal as their totem animal, and that's protecting. But even the totem animals, I guess, if you have a live one around you, would feel the same way.
Absolutely. It's an exchange. They got the superpower of instinct, and we got the superpower of logic. And somehow, we have to kind of come together.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're great teachers for telepathy, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, definitely.
Miss Sadie will sit and look at me, and certain looks mean certain things. I'm like, okay, here comes the food, here comes the potty, here comes whatever it is that she's asking for, because she will make that known. So let's say someone wants to go down the path. They've loved hearing you talk today, and they want to go down the path of becoming an animal communicator. How do they connect with you? How long is the process?
It's everything from, like I said, I have digital classes up to online. If people are really serious about the whole, what I call the big program, but it's called the Animal Mastery Program. Honestly, it's about a 2-year program, but in the 2 years, you've done a number of case studies. You've talked to well over 250 animals. You've done EFT or scalar wave with almost another 250 animals. So the experience and the breadth of knowledge that a graduate walks out with sets them up for a pretty great career. I have graduates doing amazing things right now. So the world needs more helpers. So I'd love to help people get started. And I have smaller certification programs too that are about a year long.
Okay. So if you definitely have a love of animals, folks, and you want to help them, this is a program to follow. Now, what about, catching the wild rabbit in the backyard or whatever? Can this work with, what we consider wild animals these days, or is it best just to stay away?
I'm a believer in just being in communing with wildlife, but I'll tell you, I had a situation where there was a raven with a severely broken wing, and by just staying really calm and using a lot of the grounding techniques, I was able to catch him and get him to a wildlife center. And I use the techniques, on wildlife trips. We're able to really have so many animals come closer to our Jeep than any. I just got back from India, and the guides we were with were just blown away with how many tigers we saw and how many tiger encounters we had. And we just really do this simple little meditation that I lead and get quiet and appreciate. And the next thing you know, tigers are practically rubbing their butt up against the Jeep.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. I have pictures that I almost can't believe that was me that was there a month ago.
Mm-hmm. That is fantastic. Do you have any other trips coming up where you're working with animals?
I have, well, like I said, I'm going to the Humane Society where I'm going to actually be tapping with a lot of animals and the staff. And then I have a trip to Zimbabwe in November, and then Thailand in May. And then I'm working on a few more things like snow leopards and jaguars and Rwanda for gorillas. I got a lot of trips up my sleeve.
Well, a lot of trips and a lot of healing going on. They always talk about how do you change the world, and it's one person at a time, and with you, it's one animal at a time. So I honor you and I appreciate the work that you have been doing. One thing before I let you go, you can, I have dogs in the house, not cats, but you can, scratch them or rub them in a certain area and you get, this response from them. Is that their feel good point? And if so, is that a good thing for us to do with them, or should we just leave that alone and let them find that good spot for themselves?
No, I think that, finding that good spot for them just gives everybody joy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though, like, my one dog can be like, okay, keep doing it all day. You don't have anything else to do. So it's, no, I think that just kind of brings up the joy in both. But also often, there are points in the body that not just, that feels good to them. Might feel good for a reason. Like, it could be that part of their back is sore. And so what you're actually doing is bringing in a lot of circulation. So definitely.
Okay, so love on your animals, folks. Give them some massages and learn to listen to them. I mean, if nothing else from this talk, that's the big thing that I got, is learning to listen, pay attention, and then help them the best that you can. Joan, I really appreciated your time today. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you. I love what you do. So I think I'm really honored that you picked me.
Thank you. hey, good people come together. That's the name of the game. And folks listening, I truly appreciate your time and attention. And again, I'm always blown away that you take time out of your very busy schedule to listen. But everyone, please remember that the most important choice that you can make is what you choose to make important. Consider making the masterful choice of learning EFT for animals. Abundant blessings, light, and love to all. Agape.